All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to honor your time by starting on time. I appreciate you all coming out. I'm Jeff Havers. I'm the new Director of Curriculum Instruction for all the preschools through 5th grade. This presentation also includes 6 through 8, so I do have information for that if you came out and you're a middle school parent. So I'm going to get started. A lot of this information I actually took from the PARCC website. I took their PARCC Parent Night presentation. I did make adaptations, modify it. They have a lot of text. I tried to add some pictures and make it more inviting and easier to understand. But again, a lot of this is really taken from PARCC. And then there's plenty of slides that I added to it. But the beginning is really pretty much what PARCC says about their test. So when you talk about the PARCC test, New Jersey adopted new standards in 2010. And of course, those are the Common Core standards. The goal was to try to get students and kids to be college and career ready. And that was based on a lot of research done saying that 50% of our community college students had to take remedial courses because they're not coming out of our schools, schools in general prepared. That 65% of all jobs will require some type of extra training besides high school. And that employers, in some cases, are having trouble finding certain skilled employees. So when you talk about new standards, New Jersey adopted new standards and developed curriculum. And then the PARCC test is the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. That was a test that's created to measure how well students do in the Common Core. There are 12 states that actually use the PARCC test. Okay, so we're one of 12. 11 states actually in District of Columbia. Now, again, the objectives of PARCC are to try to help us determine if students master the standards and if they're college or career ready. On the path, on the track to being college or career ready. Obviously, you're in 3rd grade, you should not be ready for college yet, but you need to be on the track. Okay. To try to support instruction by giving us information and data about how successful they are. And to report growth and achievement. The results for PARCC, one of the benefits is supposed to be that it's comparable, so we can look at New Jersey or our school versus not just other schools in New Jersey, but to look at how we do across those 11 or 12 different states. And of course, PARCC is technology driven. Part of the reason for this is that you can increase student access to technology. Many tests are technology driven now. SATs, GREs, different types of tests students need to take when they get older are computer driven. They provide accommodations. So a regular paper and pencil test had a limited amount of accommodations, but the PARCC test has a lot of different accommodations to help students. They tend to be more engaging because they're more interactive. Sometimes the students are watching little video clips and trying to make decisions or trying to understand what was being said in that video. And of course, this year, we all know that the scoring reporting was not very quick, right? They took the test last year, and we didn't get the reports until December. Moving forward, it's supposed to be much quicker, so we're supposed to get those results within 45 days. I can't promise that, but that's what we're told. So hopefully that it will be more effective in terms of getting us information. It's definitely a different type of test, as we said before. Students are really, it's about thinking differently too, because with the PARCC test, with the more rigorous assessment, it's really about showing also and explaining their work, which is very important. It's a very important difference. It's more just a multiple choice test. They really have to justify their answers in a lot of cases and show what they know and what they can do. I go through this with my daughters right now. I have a 7th grade daughter and I have a 5th grade daughter. And if you look at like a multiple choice, if Corinne puts B, and it's wrong, and they say, well, no, that's not the right answer. She goes, well, it's C. And it may be C. But then I always stop and say, Corinne, why? Explain to me why. Even if it's right, I want you to tell me why. Because we all know it's a lot harder sometimes to explain the answer than it is to get the answer, especially if they're guessing. So I kind of go, explain to me like I don't know anything. And they like that, because they like pretending that doesn't know anything. And it's focused on applying skills. For example, if you look at like a 5th grade type of question, previous would say New Jersey Ask and other types of assessments. This would be an old test item right here, right? What 2 words are synonyms for a heap, okay? A new test answer is going to be to define what the word dictate means, okay? And you use context clues. Right away, dictate is a much more rigorous word than heap in 5th grade. And second off, you're using a skill because you have to try to figure out your context clues to determine what the word dictate means. So that's an applicable skill that we need to teach our children how to use, right? That's how we read when we figure out words, often is by context clues. So definitely more rigorous. Fourth grade math, again, very different. This would be an old type of math test item on the left, where you have to maybe draw a number line or label something. Here, you may still have to identify items on the number line or plug it in, but what you can see is even if you're going to give an answer, you have to explain why. Okay? If you're going to say that if you're creating a fraction that's between 3 over 2 and 5 over 6, you have to explain why. So even if you got it right, it goes deeper. So you may get a point for getting it right, but you also need to get points for explaining why it's right. But we also have to keep in mind that the PARCC tests are just one measurement, right? It's one type of test. We all know, I have children, we all have children, they are more than just one test, right? And it's more than just reading and math, although we all know it's also fundamentally important. They have to be able to do it. We have other assessments in school. We have MAP tests, benchmark tests, ERA, class performances, class projects, what they do in art, what they do in music, how they interact with each other. All those things matter. They all matter because it's all about the whole child. So it is one test. It's an important test, but it's one measurement. One of the things, and actually I did this picture because when I was reading the PARCC site, kind of gave an analogy about how this test is harder. And the reality is we've been used to easier skills, right, and easier assessments. So we've been used to shooting that basketball at a certain height, at a certain distance. Now with a harder assessment, the net's further away and it's higher. It's going to take us a while to get there. So it will take time. And again, this is not Jeff Faber saying it. This is actually from PARCC. I just added the pictures. So it's going to take some time. Our results from last year, these are district results in grades 3 to 5. One of the things, when we look at the results, proficient are going to be categories in level 4 or level 5. Some people get a little confused because we look at level 3, which is in the middle, and think, oh, that's average. But it's really not meeting the standards. Okay? So 4 or 5 is really what it takes to be proficient. Now, this is last year's test score. If you look in PARCC, 3rd grade ELA. This is 38% of all the students in those 12 states that pass. 38% pass in all those 12 states. In New Jersey, the percentage was 44%. Our district was 23%. Dembo 19, Fort Dix 35, Stackhouse 20, and Bozansky 26. So below the state average in each school. 4th grade ELA, we have the state at 51, we have Fort Dix at 51. The PARCC group and Stackhouse group were the same at 42%. 5th grade ELA, you can see Fort Dix is a little lower than the state, and the other schools are all lower than the state. In 3rd grade math, you can see Fort Dix is actually above the state average, and the other schools are below. 4th grade math, all the scores are below the state average, and Fort Dix is above PARCC, and Stackhouse is a little less than the PARCC average. 5th grade math, Fort Dix is much higher than the state average, and you can see the Bozansky is actually higher than the state average as well, in terms of percentage of students that passed. Now, 3rd through 5th grade, what we're trying to do this year in terms of helping our children is we're trying to refamiliarize ourselves with the standards. Looking at the standards again, what are we testing? Let's look at it more carefully. Let's look at it again and how we can better create more rigor for our students and help them. We are focusing on math fact fluency. One of the keys is you do need to explain how you get an answer, but it's really hard, especially when you get older and the more advanced you get with math. If a child doesn't know their basic math facts, my daughter's in 7th grade right now. She's doing pre-algebra, right? If she doesn't know her basic math facts and it's a 5-step problem, if she's sitting there counting on her fingers, she may finally get the answer, but then she forgets what part of the problem she's at. So you have to have your math facts. You got to have it. So we have Otter Creek, which is an online platform where students can work on games and activities, and they do it as one of their centers. So we're doing that with math fact fluency, and it's something as a parent that the old flashcards, having kids sit in the back, and I'm driving in the car, I'm like, all right, Corinne, what's 4 times 6? You know, we can always do that. Masonic model. This is something we just implemented this year, which is a collaborative approach that focuses on student strengths, and really it's about early intervention and having an action plan and really trying to figure out if a child's having trouble and try to deal with it very early on and create an action plan based on their strengths, and again, based on the whole child, because usually if they're having trouble with reading or having trouble with math, there's usually something else that's creating that problem. So trying to help them address that. And for next year, one of the things these are a few things we're looking at to try to improve for next year. We're looking at bringing a supplemental program called Foundations, and that'll be focused on K-2, 30 minutes a day. That's a tier 1, and I know that's K-2, but the reality is we need to start there, right? We can't wait till 3rd grade to focus on these skills. So that's something we need to focus on, because we realize that our phonics program in Journeys is not strong enough. So we want to put 30 minutes of phonics using foundational skills, which is a research-based, highly effective program that's used in many schools. For Tier 2, for our basic skills or academic mastery students in K-2, we're going to be using Foundations for that, and also in grade 3. And there's also a program, which is over here, this little part of the triangle, called Just Words. Again, focus on reading skills, and that'll be for grades 4 and 5. In terms of math fact fluency, we're going to be looking at a program called Fast Math. Again, we have Otter Creek, but Fast Math, we believe, will have some better reporting in terms of teachers being able to track students' progress and students being able to track their progress, and parents as well. So we'll be looking into that program to see if that's more beneficial. And the other big thing we're looking at is working on the schedule. Right now, if a child has to go to guidance, or they have to go to speech, or they have to go to OT or PT, or if they get academic mastery. I just met with parents a couple weeks ago who said, you know, I'm a little frustrated. I want them to get the extra help with academic mastery, but they leave and they come back and they miss whatever was going on in class. It is a problem. It's not a unique problem to Pemberton. It's a problem that happens in many schools. So we're working on the schedule. We're bringing a scheduler in that kind of help us look at the schedule to try to create something called an intervention and enrichment period. So in 3rd grade, during that day, there'll be one period, one 40-minute period set aside just for intervention and enrichment. So there'll be no new instruction. So if a kid is pulled out, they have to go somewhere. It won't be perfect. There's probably going to be anomalies or sometimes when a kid gets pulled to go somewhere. But for the most part, we want to try to make that pure. So if a child leaves, they leave during that time period. They get the extra help they need. That's the intervention, or it could be enrichment. They go to gifted and talented. And then they come back, and they didn't miss the math lesson. And then they come back, because what happens now, they come back, and the teacher says, well, you missed this, you got some extra homework, and they try to do their best, but there's 20 other kids in the room. And so the child comes home, and now sometimes it compounds the problem. So when those kids leave, maybe you have 20 kids in a classroom, 3 kids leave for academic mastery, another kid leaves for counseling, another kid leaves for OT, now you have 15 kids left. The classroom teacher will have centers in the room, enrichment activities, they can go and work on the computer, and a small group instruction for them to help kids, but it won't be on that new math fact or that new math lesson of the day. Okay. And again, we'll be looking at that for next year. So you can see here, I created this little picture. Teacher will keep a core group of kids, but all these little extracurricular activities or extra help will be done ideally during that I&E period. Again, it won't be 100%, may not be perfect, but that'll be the goal. In grades 6 to 8, our 6th grade test scores in language arts were below the state average, below the PARCC average. And 7th grade, also below the state and PARCC average. This will be posted online, okay? This PowerPoint, I know I'm going pretty fast, and if you have questions, I'm happy to, I'll be here all night if you need to. I can go back and show you whatever you want, but it will be posted as well. So 8th grade language arts, again, below the PARCC and state average. So we know we have a lot of work to do. 6th grade math, below the PARCC and state average. 7th grade, also below the PARCC and state average. 8th grade math, below the PARCC and state average. And in our Algebra 1 in 8th grade, we had 8%, only 8% of our students in Algebra 1 were proficient or passed. In 6th through 8th grade, again, the focus is to refamiliarize yourself with the standards and focus on the standards. In math, for instance, there's evidence claims. And we're going to be looking at those evidence claims to make sure our assessments are better aligned. Focus on character education, because again, if you look at a child right now in the middle school, if they don't feel safe, if they don't have a secure environment, they're not going to be focused on learning. They're going to be focused on the drama in the hallway, or what's going to happen here when I leave the room, or who's saying what about me. So we want to have a safe, friendly environment so all kids can feel secure and focus on learning. Again, we are using the Masonic model in 6th through 8th grade. Next year we'll have our one-to-one iPad initiative, so every student in 6th through 8th grade will have the ability to have an iPad. But keep in mind there's a lot of work to be done. You can't just hand somebody a computer and think that they're going to learn everything by holding the computer. So we have some work to do in terms of the curriculum with the computer. So, and that's digital content. That's creating what apps are the kids going to be able to use, what e-books are they going to have. So we're piloting right now. We'll be piloting this spring in language arts, a couple different platforms. So we can choose what digital content we're going to use next year for language arts. And then next year in math, we're going to be piloting different math programs to help us determine what we're going to use the following year for math digital content. And then we're also bringing in a schedule actually in February to help us start to look at the middle school schedule so we can determine how we can be more effective and efficient with our resources to try to help us better identify what we can do with our schedules. Finally, there's a student report, which I hope you all have or have received. They were sent out before winter break. And when you look at the student report, this is a sample for English language arts. And when you look at that, it tells you the level, whatever level that student received. And again, that's a level 3, which would be in the middle, but not proficient, because proficient is going to be that 4 or 5 category. It'll also tell you what the state average was for that grade level. It'll tell you the district average, and it'll tell you the PARCC average, and it'll tell you the school average. So proficient is 750 for every category, so it'll let you know that. It'll break it down in language arts, or break it down, give you a reading score and a writing score. And then also on the back, it'll give you some ideas. It'll give you ideas about what areas a child was stronger in or weaker than. In this area, if it's a down arrow, it's below expectations in that category. If it's sideways, it means they're close to meeting expectations. And if it's an up arrow, that means they either met it or are exceeding expectations. And they do a pretty good job of telling you what each category is. Math is a little more nebulous. It's a little more confusing. Same thing in terms of the categories and the levels, and 4 and 5 need to be achieved to be proficient. But this is major content. So most of the test is the major content. So this is in 4th grade. So it's multiplication, division, place value. So this is the major content, the basic math that we think and we know, I would say traditional in many regards. Expressing mathematical reasoning, that is where kids have to analyze and have to justify and say, here's why. Or to analyze what somebody else did and say, here's why. And modeling application, again, part of that's critical thinking, but also modeling. So what is 3/4? They'd have to draw it, show it, okay? Which again is different. So I encourage you when you're working with your children, and you go to work, say, explain it to me. Pick one problem, say, explain it to me. My rule is whenever my daughter gets something wrong, then I have her redo it, I say, now explain to me how you got this. Explain it to me. And when she has to explain it to me, she does a little better the first time too, to be honest with you. She doesn't want to do that, because it takes more time. But again, critical that we get them to explain why they're doing what they're doing. The test this year, the testing window, we only one testing window. That's from April 4th to May 13th. And each school is working on their testing schedules. The test is going to be 90 minutes shorter than last year in total. Last year was 2 testing windows, and it was 90 minutes longer. So it's been reduced. And the time frames are there in terms of what grade level and how long the tests are, and the different tests in the units. I'll give you a second to look at that. And that's for English language arts. And then in math, again, it's falling. They both get tested in that one testing window this year. And the total test time is 90 minutes less than last year. How can you support your child at home? Definitely reading. If there's nothing else you do, read. Fiction and nonfiction text. One of the big changes with the Common Core is having children read more nonfiction text. Okay? Because the reality is that's what we tend to read when we go to work, right? We're not reading novels when we're going out to work. We're reading stuff that's not always easy to read. So they need to get used to that. We need to challenge them with that. Discuss and do real-life math problems. Again, you can quiz them on multiplication, math facts in the car ride. You can have them estimate what they think the grocery bill is going to do just for a fun game. Who can get closest, right, by estimating? How much will the tax be? If you go out to eat at a restaurant, I just did it with my daughters the other night. I said, all right, what do you think the tip should be? You know, all right, well, let's decide on what percentage, but then what would that be? Who can get closest? And again, have them explain and show you why they got an answer. Because if they can't, that's a problem, right? That is a problem. Have your child write notes, letters, explanations, write grandma, type grandma, right? Those are all important things. Grandma will appreciate it too. And provide that comfortable, quiet place for them to work at home. And the PARCC website says make sure they sleep, get a good night's sleep, and eat a nutritious breakfast before the test. But reality is, it's more than just before a PARCC test, right? That's every night, every day. Because the learning is more important than the test, right? So we really need to focus on that every day in terms of eating breakfast and get a good night's sleep, which is not easy. There are some good websites, and I have a handout for everyone at the back table when you leave. It looks like a lot of people picked it up. Some really good websites here. The first one is Understand Your Child's State and Test Results. That's Understand the Score. That gives you more information. To be honest with you, it really gives you a lot of information that I already gave you, but if you walk away and say, hey, I want to know a little bit more, you can go there. Skill Builder, you actually can plug in the state, New Jersey, the grade level, the subject, and the test area. And what they'll do is they'll give you a whole list of different videos that you can watch and different websites. The videos are okay, to be honest with you. The websites can be really, really good. There's some great math game websites, different websites there that you can find. Great Kids State Test Guide for Parents, this Great Kids website. What you do is when you go there, you can choose language, arts, or math. You choose your grade level, so it goes from 3rd through 8th. And then you choose what it means. So if you want to know what a different standard means, it'll help explain it. And then, on the right side, if you click the right button, How to Help, it'll actually give you activities and different strategies what you can do to help your child. Okay? This site takes some time to go through. My favorite site, and I saved the best for last, is really Adaptive Mind. Adaptive Mind is grades 1 through 6, but really, I think a wonderful website done by some college students from the University of Berkeley and I think Stanford. And what happens here is you pick what grade level. And once you pick that grade level, they have reading, little selections. They can read and take a quiz. They earn badges and points, right? And they can keep track. And you can choose which level, beginning of the year of 5th grade, middle of the year of 5th grade, end of the year of 5th grade. And what happens is if it's too hard, you can just click the easier button and it'll adjust, right? Or you can make it harder. And in 5th grade, there's 32 different stories they can go through and actually work your way through the different levels. Really, really great website. They have math as well. There's a math program. I didn't want to take the time to show you the math slides, but they have math. You go to Adapted Mind, you go to that website. The math is fantastic. You click on the grade level, and you click on the topic, and when they work on it, again, they can earn badges. You can get a membership, but you can click on the right. It says free math or free reading. If you get a membership, and you can sign in so they can track your child's score. You can just say, I want you to go spend 30 minutes on Adapted, snow day, Monday, which I hope we don't have. But hey, I want you to spend this much time doing Adaptive Mind. And what will happen is the problems will adjust. So if your child's getting something wrong and they get another one wrong, it'll make it a little bit easier and help work at their level. If they're getting them right, they just keep getting harder for them. So that's a great website to try to make sure. Because sometimes you go to a website and sometimes it can be too easy for a kid or too hard for a kid. So I think a great website in terms of being able to adapt to different abilities and helping kids grow. And finally, are there any questions?